All right, hello and welcome back to online English class. I hope you guys are doing well today. Today we're going to be working through the study guide for your Unit 6 test, which is the final content unit of the year. All right, before we do that, however, we want to spend some time reminding ourselves of the top of the week announcements here at the end of the week so that we can have a clear understanding of where we've come from and where we're going. Okay, so quickly, just remember your discussion grade procedure. Okay, your daily duties on that. Enough about that. Okay, your Unit 8 progress check needs to be done. If you're in the AP course and you had some technical difficulties with the AP Classroom website, no worries. Get that to me when you can. I'm sure that it's back up and running. If it isn't yet, then just be patient and do it whenever it does come back up, and I'll give you full credit for it. No problem. Okay. For your OTN3, all of you should have submitted that to me by Wednesday at 3 p.m. That's going to be particularly useful for you honors and regular students in your upcoming test, as the test is going to be about one of the three prompts that we have already discussed in class. If you're an AP, you're going to have to do some more independent and original work on a past AP prompt. Okay, so yesterday we engaged with the content of Lecture 3, not exactly riveting information, but information that nonetheless should be mastered by you and also is going to be very useful for structuring your use of the sources in your Unit 6 test and your Quarter 4 essay. All right. Aside from this, you need to begin preparing for your Unit 6 test today. All right. I'm going to give you an overview of the study guide. I'm not going to spend too much time with it. I'm just going to let you spend your time with it. All right. But I do want to talk through some of the important points and point out some things that you'll need to understand. All right, you'll be writing that test on Monday. I'll be giving you the prompt for that test on Monday in an email, just like your Unit 5 test. I'll give you the prompt. You'll have a day with the prompt. Then you can write the test on Tuesday or Monday if you want, but you need to send me the email with your completed test by Tuesday at 3 p.m. All right. Beyond that, after that, we're going to be working on your Quarter 4 essay in the AP honors and regular classes. We're going to be concentrating specifically on how to and what it would look like for you to write a really excellent synthetic research paper that responds to a contentious issue. We're going to look at sample sources. We're going to look at sample essays. Sorry, that's what I mean to say when I say sample sources. We'll be looking at some sample essays from the past. Talking about what they're doing well and how you can also do those things well. Okay, so before we get into that, let's just go ahead and spend the rest of our day and our time today on this Friday just with this review guide. Okay, so the basic test components, the basic thing that you are facing is an one essay prompt. All right, that requires you to use synthesis to support a claim. All right, that claim needs to be generated in response to whatever prompt that you are faced with. Okay, so there are three different basic assignments here for the three different classes. Right, for AP students, you guys need to be prepared to write in response to a past AP prompt. Okay, those AP prompts can be found on the AP exam page for AP English Language. If you would like to peruse those and look at what some of those synthetic prompts look like. All right, I've actually got a link to one at the bottom of the review guide there if you want to take a look at them. Honor students need to be prepared to write in response to all three prompts that we've studied throughout the unit, okay? So American Jeremiad, Religious Freedom, and the Memorialization of John Brown. All right, regular students, if you're enrolled in the regular class, you get to select the prompt that you want to write about, that you feel most comfortable with and most prepared for. Select that one, write your response. You don't have to wait for me to assign you your prompt because you know what it's going to be. Honor students, I'm going to assign you your prompt on Monday. AP students, I'm going to assign you your prompt with an attachment of all the documents and the prompt itself on Monday. Regular students, you guys just can go ahead and get started. Again, all I need is a cogent, reasonable claim. All right, so the composition skills, the basic skills that you need to show me throughout the course of your essay are kind of cumulative of what we've been talking about throughout the course of the year. Okay, you need to be able to write a thesis statement that requires proof or defense. and may preview the structure of the argument. That is to say, it may be a closed thesis statement that offers me the criteria that you'll explore. Okay, you need to be able to write an introduction and a conclusion appropriate to the purpose and context of the rhetorical situation. Some of you guys, all right, have decided that introductions and conclusions are completely unnecessary in your writing. That is incorrect, okay? Now, I understand that in test writing, especially in classes that are not directly oriented towards composition and composition skills and rhetoric, like for instance, you're writing in a history class, right? Screw the introduction, get to the thesis and go, right? Well, this is a composition class. This is a rhetoric class, all right? And good pieces of writing have engaging introductions that drive you toward the thesis and offer you necessary background information that brings you to that thesis, okay? That hook the reader, if you will, okay? And a good piece of writing has a conclusion that binds together your argument and reiterates your central claim and leaves the essay and the essay's reader with a sense of satisfaction, improving your logos appeal. As in the conclusion, you bring everything back together and say basically, see, what I've told you is logical and correct, true, evidence-based. All right. Don't skip introductions and conclusions. It's a part of the AP language curriculum. Okay. Now I understand that in other courses it's not a part of the curriculum. Right. The APUS curriculum does not have writing effective introductions and conclusions appropriate to purpose and context of the rhetorical situation in the curriculum. All right. But the College Board in AP language and composition does. So you can't skip it. Don't skip it. All right. Write an effective introduction. Write an effective conclusion. Okay. You need to be able to develop paragraphs that include claim, evidence. All right. All of these things develop a line of reasoning and commentary. Okay. So, in other words, a series of assertions supported with evidence and commentary that explains your claim throughout the argument. You need to use transitional elements to guide the reader through the line of reasoning. Okay. So, both as you move into a quotation that's going to serve as evidence out of, okay, we talked about that with framing, but also more largely with respect to your paragraphs as you move from one supporting point. All right, and then transition into your next supporting point, right? You need to sort of bridge that gap for your reader and explain why this supporting point is related to your next supporting point, or why moving from this point to this point is a logical step to take, the next thing that we should think about, all right? Transitional elements, right? Now, sometimes writing teachers will oversimplify this and say, I'll teach you how to write transitions. All you need to know is a couple phrases, right? Next, or second, or right, like all of these like lame little trite phrases that are, quote, transitional elements. Well, transitional elements are relative to the rhetorical situation and the transition that is being undertaken. You guys are smart. You guys are reasonable individuals. If you want a list of transitional phrases, Google it. Okay, but all I'm telling you right now as your reader is that those transitional elements are going to be relative to context, and that it's much more effective for you to simply understand that you need to write transitions. All right, that's something that is, again, part of the curriculum. Okay, so whereas it might not be part of the curriculum in, say, APUS or AP Euro, it is part of the composition curriculum, right? And therefore, fair game for me to evaluate, assess, and to remind you that you need to do, okay? All right. Aside from that, okay, one of the the big focuses here is from this larger goal to use a claim using or qualify a claim or develop a claim using modifiers, counter arguments, or alternative perspectives. Okay, so this point right here feeds into all the synthesis points that we have unpacked. Okay, so what synthesis is. The fact that you need to acknowledge other people's ideas when you are synthesizing. When synthesizing, the fact that you draw upon multiple sources, strategically using the most relevant information to support your argument. Okay, that sources provide information for an argument, and some sources are more reliable or credible than others. The fact that you need to take account of bias. You need to take into account the fact that some sources ought not be trusted to the same extent as others. Okay, all of this information we have either explicitly lectured through in content lectures. Most of it we have explicitly lectured through, although just using different terms or maybe different phrases. But we've explicitly lectured through this, or we have implicitly practiced it as we were moving through the sources and working through our OTNs. So all of this stuff should be stuff that you are familiar with and capable of doing. All right. Aside from that, 8, 9, and 10, all right, are simply about your use of language. Okay. So strategically use words, comparisons, and syntax to convey a specific tone or style in an argument. Write sentences that clearly convey ideas and arguments, and use the conventions of grammar. Okay. So that is to say, make sure that you are capitalizing things that ought to be capitalized. Make sure that you are using commas correctly. Make sure that you are introducing your quotes in grammatically coherent ways and also rhetorically persuasive ways. Make sure that your citations are mechanically correct. Make sure that the mechanics of your essay are also correct. All right. So beyond this, you need to know a few things about how to write a synthesis essay specifically, all right? And this has to do with information that we have covered throughout the course of our content lectures. You want to begin by reading the prompt closely and determining what kind of claim you are being called on to develop and how to defend that claim appropriately. Then you ought to begin reading and analyzing the sources. Okay, for you AP students, studying this process is the most important thing you could do, because you're going to be tackling an issue that you haven't necessarily thought about yet. So the best way for you to prepare is to know all of this, to have mastered all of this information, and to know exactly the process by which you are going to undertake the synthetic essay writing endeavor. Okay, so you need to know exactly what you're going to do. And the first thing that you should start is is analyzing the prompt. Then you need to read all of the sources, okay, critically, analytically, evaluating the rhetorical situation, noting speaker bias, noting central claim, noting evidence and assumptions, and then finally, right, after you've done all that, you need to develop a clear thesis statement and place it at the end of your first paragraph, which should introduce your argument. All right, that thesis statement needs to, as always, answer the prompt. Okay, then synthesize at least 3 or 4 sources to support your own line of reasoning. So very much like the line of reasoning that you established in your 3 OTNs. Okay, or for you honor students who are actually going to be writing your synthesis essay in response to one that you already have outlined, right? If your outline is garbage, please trash it and start over. Okay, if you know that it's bad, please trash it and start over. If it's already good, all right, then you have already done this. I've already made you do this, okay, which was in the end a kind of favor, right? You've already done this, so now you can sharpen it, right? Now you already kind of have a rough draft. You already have an outline, so you can build off that outline. You can trash the outline if it's terrible, which you ought to do, okay? Don't go with it just because it's done if you know that it's bad, all right? But you need to synthesize those sources, which is to say, finesse those sources, which is to say, use those sources in your own argument. They are not a replacement for your argument. They are meant to enhance your argument, okay? They are meant to serve as evidence for your argument, okay? And as you're synthesizing your sources, make sure that you cite them, frame and integrate them, and balance, paraphrase, and direct quotation, okay? After that, right, after you begin that process, I would establish a kind of organization for your line of reasoning using basically, right, an introduction that narrates the background of the issue and states your thesis, body paragraphs that feature claims, evidence, and commentary. I would include a concession and refutation portion, all right, in which you concede a counter argument to your position, refute that counter argument. That counter argument might be articulated in one of the sources themselves, which you could cite from and then deconstruct. And then finally, write a conclusion that affirms the relevance of your argument. Okay, so this is a wise way of going about, a wise way of beginning the process of arguing your thesis. Okay, so technically, I would move. All right, a little editing here. I would move this step before the synthetic step, right? So you would want to organize and consider what the overall structure of your argument, of your line of reasoning was going to be, and how that relates to your thesis statement. And then you would want to get into the process of synthesizing, quoting, and arguing. Okay. So what does this look like? What do these prompts and sources look like for you AP students? Well, let's quickly go to this page and take a look at a past exam. This comes from the 2018 exam. All right, I will not be giving you this question, but this is what these questions look like. All right, there's a little bit of a background information here that introduces the topics. There is the prompt itself, all right, which requires you to synthesize material from at least 3 of these sources and incorporate them into a coherent, well-developed essay that defends, challenges, or qualifies the notion that eminent domain is productive and beneficial. What if I don't know what eminent domain is? Well, you're going to need to use the sources to give you a clear understanding of what it means, and you've also got a basic definition of eminent domain here above. Okay. It is then therefore further clarified that your argument should be the focus of your essay. The sources shouldn't be summarized, but rather synthesized into your larger argument. The sources look as follows. Okay, A, B, C, D, E, source F, and that is it. Okay, so after this, we get into our rhetorical analysis prompt. Okay. So this is what the exam looks like, and typically you would have 15 minutes to read and analyze these sources. I'm not going to impose that time cap on you. You can have as long as you want to work on this throughout the course of Monday and Tuesday, but the same principles apply, that you are going to be working through these sources and using them to develop an understanding of the situation and to develop your own response to the prompt in which you use these sources to support your own assertions. All right. So I've also left for you a link to some student essays or some sample essays that you can read at your own leisure. If you want to spend some time with these, you can. You don't have to. Okay, but you absolutely can if you would like to. And then finally, we've got the rubric. Okay, so the rubric, which we are going to use in order to evaluate both the honors, regular, and AP synthesis essays, has been developed by the College Board. Okay, it's a good rubric, and it's just what I'm going to use. Okay, so the first point is your thesis point. All right, does your response actually present a defensible position in response to the prompt? Okay, so for example, right, well, I've got some thesis statements here that take a stand on the productivity and beneficiality of eminent domain. I've got some that take a stand against it. Okay, but all of those defensible positions here on the right that earned the point all take a stand on eminent domain. These simply restate the prompt or addresses the topic of the prompt but does not take a position. For example, eminent domain is good and bad depending on what side you stand on and how it affects you or others. Okay, well, that is obviously not a position. All right, that is to say, essentially nothing. All right, the next 4 points are given according to evidence and commentary. Okay, just like the argumentation essay, just like your rhetorical analysis essay. Do you have evidence to support your assertions? Do you have commentary that explains that evidence uniformly? All right. Obviously, your evidence in this style of writing needs to rely heavily on references to the sources, engagement with the information in the sources. Okay. You need to use at least 3 of the sources to support your claims. All right, that will be clearly spelled out in the prompt, whether you're honors, regular, or AP, but you will need to use at least 3 sources. Probably should use more like 4. but at least three sources to support your assertions. And then finally, you get one highbrow point, Craigie, for sophistication of thought or for a level of complex understanding of the rhetorical situation. Okay, so that is what is going to be evaluated in your Unit 6 test. It is all about synthetic writing. If you want some examples of this, whether you're an honor student, regular student, or AP, you just want to see some students write synthetic style essays, what it looks like to incorporate these, then you can get online here, follow the link and read some of these. These are from past AP exams. Okay, so it's obviously going to be a little bit different for you honor students because you're going to be writing about something that you've already studied that we've discussed together in class. All right, but for you AP students, right, you're going to need to be able to do this largely independently. Okay, so reading that prompt, analyzing those sources, developing a clear thesis statement, organizing a line of reasoning, writing paragraphs that synthesize 3 to 4 sources to support your argument that are cited, framed, integrated, balanced, and that ultimately argue and support your thesis. Okay, so that is my review session. Okay, it is basically just reminding you of what you need to do, B, the basic composition skills that are being evaluated, C, the process by which you ought to go through the synthetic essay writing process, and D, the rubric by which you are going to be graded. Okay, that's all that I have for you guys today. I hope that you have an excellent weekend. I would highly recommend you guys spending some time preparing for and making sure that you've mastered all of the various portions of this study guide. And if you're in the AP class, you might want to get online, go to AP English Language and Composition exams page, all right, and look at some of these past uh, synthetic questions so that you can just get a feel for what they're like. Okay, you've got a variety of different kinds of sources. Okay, oftentimes you'll even have a visual source. Okay, that you can analyze, that you can synthesize and incorporate into your argument. So a lot of different options, a lot of different skills being evaluated. You guys have an awesome